Hey, hey, hey. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. So, wanted to take a little time to answer a question that was submitted just a couple days ago. And I think it's just easier for me to answer the questions in this format as opposed to just typing it all out. On top of that, I don't know that everybody sees the comments and questions and hears my answers. So I thought this might be able to be a little bit more of a benefit to more people. So figured we'd go about it this way. I'm going to wait a moment or two, and then there are two things that we're going to address tonight. One, I'm going to talk to you about my experience on Sunday at Parkside, which was just an amazing experience, and yeah, it was just fantastic. And then the other thing is, I want to go ahead and address the question that was asked by a viewer named Deborah. And I might even go ahead and read another comment that somebody else had posted, a positive comment. But it looks like we're up to 3 people, so that's enough for me. Good evening and welcome, everybody. And thanks for taking time that you got a notification or something and you decided to come in here and hear what I had to say. So let's get on with it. So it's been almost 1 year since I first stepped foot really into at Parkside Church here in the greater Cleveland area. I think, let's take a look at my calendar. I think May 26th will be my actual 1 year anniversary. And it's been just such a special, a godly, enriching thing. I just, my only regret is that it took me as long as it did to go there. And I'm so fully thrilled and grateful to God that He, on that day, just told me, you're going to go to Parkside this Sunday. And it's been great. And so this Sunday was Mother's Day, and it was fantastic. So Alistair was going to have somebody else was slated to be preaching, because just last week, leading up to this weekend, they have this very large conference at Parkside called Basics. And so you had hundreds and hundreds of pastors from around the globe descending on Parkside for 3 to 4 days worth of sermons and seminars and things like that. So it's naturally exhausting. But the gentleman, the pastor who Alistair was going to have preach this past Sunday, is out of the country and needed his passport. And lo and behold, something had come up, and his wife had actually mailed his passport to the government to expedite some other process in his life, unbeknownst to this pastor, until he came up and said, "Hey, honey, have you seen my passport?" "Oh yeah, I mailed that in already." So all that to say, Alistair then in turn had to preach. But I at Parkside, I am a second row sitter. I'd sit in the front row if I could, but my wife's like, I'm just too exposed. I said, okay. So second row is where I sit, and I'm just front and center, and I just really just appreciate Alistair Begg. And so, in my life, I have preached. For a long time, I thought I would be a preacher, at least a lay pastor or something like that. And So when I watch Alistair, I just watch a man that is gifted, and he knows how to weave a story, and he's excellent at what he does, and God has richly blessed him. And so what I want to say is what Alistair does, and I don't know that every pastor does it. I know that it was something I did when I was an Adventist to a degree, but I have not seen it happen much outside of that. And that is Alistair is heavily involved in the music on the day he's going to preach. And I have a good buddy who oftentimes plays guitar uh, during the Parkside worship service. And so he's told me that sometimes, like, man, sometimes it's hard because Alistair will sometimes not be finished with his sermon until like Saturday. And so then they have like that amount of time from Saturday until Sunday morning to learn those songs. Point being, Alistair, as he is led by God, as he feels inspired, he's writing these sermons. And I feel like God is also saying and bringing to him the ideas of the songs or hymns that he should choose. And so, um, if there are four songs, three leading up to the sermon, and then the closing song, Alistair has had a part in all of that. And it was I couldn't tell you the names of the songs that he chose, but it all jives. It all is sending this idea that God has given to Alistair, and that he is now passing on. And as he started talking, he's like he said something to the effect of, I spent this last week with a widow, and that immediately gets your attention. And what Alistair is doing is he preached from Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. And this is the story of the header is Jesus raises a widow's son. And I'm not going to get into it with you. I'm not going to talk to you about it. What I'm going to say to you is, here on YouTube, go to Parkside Church, go to live streams, and I would just commend to you this sermon on Mother's Day. It was beautiful. It was powerful. When I left, I'm like, I as often is the case, I'll have tears in my eyes, and this was the same. It was just so good. I wish so many of my family and friends could have witnessed it and heard it. So if you're interested, and I hope you are, check that out. Parkside Church. This would have been the May 12th sermon, and it's excellent. And I'd love to hear at some point in time your thoughts on it. I thought it was excellent. So I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way and share that with as many of you as I could. And then now I'm going to go ahead and address a question that was posed. So I always like to give you, the viewer tonight, some context behind this question. And part of the context I always like to give is what video or what was this question linked to? And the question or comments were linked to the video called "What Was Nailed to the Cross?" What was nailed to the cross? I don't know when I shot that video. I'm looking at the picture, the thumbnail, and the background here looks different from when I did it. So this has been a number of years ago that I filmed that video. But this is the comment that she made, and she actually asked a question, and then later in the video she makes a comment. And so this is, and her name is Deborah. So Deborah, if you're watching, thanks for submitting this. I hope I can give you some guidance here. So the question is the following: I could use some advice because I became SDA about 3 years ago, even though I wasn't sure. So I'm going to kind of just stop and break this down and comment as I go through it. And my gut says, sounds about right. My gut is that sounds about right. The reason I say that is I have said this multiple times, multiple times. There's exceptions to every rule. Okay, there's always going to be the exception. But by and large, the vast majority of people who convert to Adventism are not strong Bible-based people. You're not seeing professors and theologians open the word and one day suddenly like, wow, I need to be going to this church. It's not happening. They will readily start yelling and giving you examples of, well, no, what about this person, whatever, man. I'm just telling you, I was born and raised there. Okay, I was born and raised, and I can vividly remember being super excited. True story, super excited because, and this was shortly before I left Adventism. Some evangelists or some group came to our church and they played this video for us. And in it, ready for this? In it, we were so excited because Salt and Peppa, one of the 80s rap band, Salt and Peppa, Push It, all that kind of stuff, one of them had converted to be Seventh-day Adventist. And I remember like, this is great. So again, the majority of people that are converting to it are not people that are well versed in it. So for Deborah to say, I could use some advice because I became an SDA about 3 years ago, even though I wasn't sure. I don't doubt that at all. My pastor didn't have me take a vow or anything, but now I'm having trouble with a lot of their beliefs. So we'll stop again. This is very, very true because I'm not sure, Deborah, how you found yourself in, if it was because you attended a Daniel and Revelation seminar, or if a friend or family member invited you. But when they listen, they know the pain points. I speak that from experience. As a former Adventist, as an ordained elder, I knew what the pain points were. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. When we were doing our Daniel and Revelation seminar, the evangelist, I wish I could remember his name. Golly, that'd be great. I'll have to think about that. Don, I want to say Don. My wife might even know. Anyhow, when he came into town, it was very, very clear to us that we started our seminar at a local high school gymnasium. And it was told to us that local congregation that sponsored this evangelist, that sponsored the entire program, we knew we were going to be in that church for, let's just say, 2 weeks. During that time, if anyone asks you what denomination you are, your answer is we are a local Christian congregation, something like that. The biggest point being, do not tell people that you're a Seventh-day Adventist because they will have these preconceived ideas and they will immediately not come back, and rightly so. So to this point here, I'm having trouble with a lot of their beliefs because they avoid their pain points, or they spin their pain points in a very misleading way. So the fact that you are now in there 3 years and you're like, but now I'm having trouble with a lot of their beliefs. Yeah, because it takes time for you to start digging through it and understanding and seeing like, hold on, that doesn't line up. This doesn't line up. That doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? So I'm not surprised by that at all. You're right when you say they don't understand obeying in the spirit versus the letter. So I presume that she is commenting on something I'm saying in that video, that they don't understand obedience by the Spirit and obedience by the letter. That is very true. Adventists will love to look like at the book of James. Just listen to me. Adventists look at the book of James, and I'm telling you this from my heart, and this is true. I've experienced this. You know what two groups look at the book of James equally, that really love to focus on when James says your faith that works is dead? We are ultimately not, it is our works. You know what two groups love James? Seventh-day Adventists and Catholics. I've experienced that firsthand. I wonder why that is. I wonder why it is Catholics and Seventh-day Adventists both love that, because they're so focused on works. And the whole point of James is, how do you prove the quality of your faith? How do you prove the quality of your faith? You are not saved because of your works. For somebody to come along and grab James and do violence to his writings, to try to say, see, this proves that you have to work. No, the point of James is that if you say you have a faith, but your faith isn't leading to good works, then you do have a faith. It's a dead faith. The works are only there to prove the quality of the faith, the realness of the faith. But those works gain you nothing. I was watching ever so briefly a clip of Miles and another gentleman having a conversation, and the other man was commenting on Adventism because they were reading this gorgeous quote of Ellen White, and I can't remember the quote, but it was clearly works. It's clearly combining works and faith. And the gentleman said to Miles, and it was a great rhyme. I should have written it down, because he basically said something to this effect: if you're trying to gain, maintain, or sustain, something to that effect, by works, then it's a cult. Well, you see, the thing that the true believer believes is that the moment we are regenerated, the moment we are born again, the moment we are brought to life through faith in Christ, faith, by the way, that is a gift from Him, that awakening from the dead to life is all from Him. At that time, our eternity is set. Now, this makes some people very uncomfortable, because it's this idea of once saved, always saved. Jesus said, Father, those who you have given me, I have kept, and I will not lose one of them. Not one of them will get out of my hand. This is how Jesus viewed me. This is how Jesus views you, is that everybody that the Father has given him, I'm going to hold them, and they're not getting away from me, because they are precious to me. And the bottom line is this: anyone who experiences a real born again experience through true faith, they may fall. I've experienced that, but they come back. But so, boy, I'm really going on a lot here. So here's the point. I'm going back to this separation of faith and works. My works played zero role in my justification. They played zero role in my justification. My being judged as being righteous, not because of something I had done, not even because I believed. That was a gift itself from God. It is all through faith in Christ alone, through His righteousness. That's how I step into that role. Nothing that I have done. All works do. I'll give you two things works do. Number one, works are a means of proving the quality of our faith. And number two, listen, The Bible says that you were chosen, you were selected to be holy. We were selected to be holy. So the other thing is, works are part of our sanctification. But this idea of this flipping back and forth that anybody else in here that was a former Adventist or current Adventist have probably felt that same way, that you're falling in and you're falling out of salvation. When I asked a close relative, this was years ago, and I said, if you should die tonight, a massive heart attack, the question is, will you be saved? And there's just this silence on the other end of the phone. And it just continued to be silent. And I said, can I stop you a second? Were you just now doing sin inventory? And the answer was, yeah. They were surprised that I knew. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I was adding it up. And I said, where's faith in Christ and all that? What is your focus on right now? On him and his saving blood, or on you and how many sins you've committed today? It's totally on me. Yeah. So the point we're driving here is they don't understand the difference between obeying by the Spirit and obeying by the letter. All they can do is obey by the letter. They are the old wineskins. They cannot handle the new wine, cannot handle it. So Deborah continues, one person told me that faith in Jesus helps us obey, and he means the 10 Commandments. I'm laughing, but this is the craziest stuff in the world, man. I don't deny that, over the last year, over the years, even since my departure from Adventism, I've had a strange relationship when it comes to the law. I'll be totally honest with you. I've had a very strange relationship with the law. I've never been antinomian. I've always known, you can't, because Paul makes it very clear. He's not saying that you can just do whatever you want. But whereas a recovering Adventist, where I would struggle was well, what is my relationship to the law? What is my relationship to the law? And so kind of where I would settle from time to time is that I think I'm very, very, very similar to John MacArthur, who an Adventist will immediately turn this video off or start laughing hysterically. Neither of those results would bother me in the slightest bit. But their perspective, his perspective is that there really are nine of the commandments are still intact, but the fourth commandment, which I've talked about ad nauseum on this channel before, is it's just so very, very clearly ceremonial. It's ceremonial. So what I would say is, so she says, one person told me that faith in Jesus helps us obey, and he means the 10 Commandments. What I would say is, I think what I would say is, it is not my faith that helps me do that, but I believe the Holy Spirit living in me is what leads me to obey. It is my daily relationship with him. The more I get to know him, the more I listen to me, the more I desire to obey. But where the difference is letter of the law. Listen to me now. Letter of the law is things like, when you think about the Jews of old going, well, I didn't murder him. No, but you hated him. Well, I didn't commit adultery. Yeah, but you were lusting after her, or you were lusting after him. Letter of the law looks at that. And when you want to talk about letter of the law, look at the Sabbath commandment. It's all letter. So for me, what I do, the way I look at Sunday is not because I'm opening the Bible and it says this or that, but I want that day to be as free from distractions as possible. On that day, I know that with all things being equal, if everything works according to plan, I will be at that church in the morning, and I will go back in the evening for the six o'clock the evening service. That's the way I like to begin and end my. That's my day. That's the Lord's day. That's how I like it. Now, in between, what happens when you get back from church, Scott? Well, and this is where I probably differ from Alistair. It's maybe where I differ from clearly from other Adventists or whatever. Is on the way home, my wife and I may stop and we may go to lunch. I may pay money. I'm not treating that day like I'm not carried to this letter of this law. So, but I try. But if it were me, if I could just come home and we do something else, I'm perfectly fine with that. But when I'm sitting there at the Mexican restaurant eating too many nachos, there's no part of me going, I really shouldn't be doing this. There's nothing inside me going, Scott, this is morally wrong. There's no part of that that's happening. Any other sin that I would commit, there would definitely be a thing like, I can't believe you're doing this. I cannot believe you're doing this. This is wrong. I would feel something eating me inside. I don't feel that when I'm sitting at the Mexican restaurant. This past Sunday is Mother's Day. Well, I was gone all last week out in Sacramento. So when I got home, the grass was so tall. So I knew I was going to go to church. And when I got back, I was going to cut that grass because my mother-in-law was going to be over. Some friends were going to be over. And like the grass was terrible. And I didn't know when it was going to rain again. And so on the Lord's Day, I cut the grass. And while I was cutting the grass, you know what I was doing? Listening to Alistair's sermon. Now, does that make it holy? No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that I don't treat it like that. So her point is somebody told her that faith in Jesus means that they'll obey the 10 Commandments. This is how do I want to say this? Terrible thing. Why? Because my first question is this: can anyone keep the 10 Commandments? No, they can't. So what does the Adventists then do to others and to themselves? They say, because you can't keep the 10 Commandments, what does it say about your faith? You see where they go? They immediately go internal, or they're judging somebody else. Well, your faith isn't strong enough. This is the devil's way of looking at it. To go ahead and start destroying you internally, like my faith's not good enough. I've got to, and so you're tying again right there. You're tying the faith and the works, like because you're not perfect. No one's ever going to be perfect on this side of heaven. None of us can keep the law. All right, let's continue. I have a lot of friends in the SDA, and for certain reasons, I had felt like God led me to join. It's kind of a long story, so I can't go into it here now, but now I'm just confused and I'm not sure what to do. I don't have a car and I get rides there, so it's not easy for me to just go to a different church. So that was her entire comment. So when I'm reading that, if I'm trying to understand the theme of what she's saying, the theme is, I would really like to get out. I'm feeling relational conflict. I don't think that Deborah is feeling theological conflict. What I mean by that is, it's not like she thinks it's true and to leave would be a theological conflict. No. I think she theologically has got it down. She's like, no, what? This is nuts. But the conflict with, I have a lot of friends in SDA, and for certain reasons, I had felt like God led me there. And then she says, and then also, I don't have a car and I get rides there. So it's not so easy for me. So a couple things that I would say. If you're asking me, Deborah, should I continue to go here? No. Now, am I biased? Well, to a degree, yes, I will admit I am biased because I've been in there. I know what they believe. I know what they teach. You see, if I were saying this about Jehovah's Witness, that would not be right, because Even though I don't believe in Jehovah's Witness, I have not studied everything Jehovah's Witness believe. I have never in my life stepped inside of a Jehovah's Witness church. So I couldn't begin to say that, but I have the experience when it comes to Adventism. So that's why I say, without any hesitancy, you need to leave. You need to leave. Now, what I would say about not having a car, I would not advise you that you allow that to be what keeps you there. Well, I'll go to church somewhere. You know, listen, when I first, when my eyes were opened to Adventism, I had this vision of, well, I'll stay and I'll reform the church inside. And a buddy of mine who had left before me, he was like, that's a waste of time. That's a waste of time because you're not gonna reform it. And I agree with that. I don't have influence. I don't have the power. And that church is a machine. That church is a machine. And it handles, you want to know exactly how it handles those who question it and those who start the squeaky wheel. Check out Answering Adventism. Check out Miles's video about this guy who's Adventist in the Adventist Defense League or whatever his name is. Watch that, because you'll see how Adventists want to handle a person that steps away. You know, I've been on this platform for 5 years or something, and if you go back to my earlier videos, go back through the comments, and you'll see how that machine handles it. And the thing of it is, it's not like the GC. It's not like the GC sits up there and they have a meeting. They go, so there's this site, Intoxicated by Grace. Frank, Stevie, I need you guys to go and start harassing. No, there are never orders, generally speaking, that I'm aware of. There aren't orders given. The body. You have people in the body who love to argue. Again, speaking from my own personal experience and from, yeah. And they will take that. They'll take up those reins. They don't need a directive from the GC. They're happy to go ahead and do it. And what they do, and it is the most ridiculous methodology known, is it's just attack the messenger. That's all it is. Attack the messenger, destroy his or her credibility. Do we look at the message? No, because we already have the truth. We already have the truth, so we don't need that. I don't care what that is. No. We're good. This guy, something happened to him. He's angry. Maybe he got disciplined in the church. Maybe the carpet was a different color than he liked. This is the kind of nonsense that they immediately do. So my advice would be, leave. Do not go there simply because of that. What I would recommend you do, if you're going to ask me, Scott, which way would you direct me? My theology is Reformed theology. So that's pastors like John MacArthur, John Piper, R.C. Sproul, Alistair Begg. What's that other guy? Teddy? I don't know. But I would highly recommend you find a Reformed church. Now, there is a Reformed church denomination. That's not what not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, and I've talked about this on here before, Reformed theology isn't like, it overrides denominations. As I said in the past, John MacArthur, Baptist. I think Alistair is a Baptist. R.C. Sproul, Presbyterian. So it's not a denomination. Reformed theology is just like, and when I think back, like John Stott, John Owen, what is his name? The prince of all preachers. His name is Charles Spurgeon. These are all like reformed in their theology. My recommendation is find a church that follows that type of theology. For me, it is a theology that elevates God and his holiness and his sovereignty. It elevates the scriptures. You may be aware that very recently the UMC, the Universal Methodist Church, has made this announcement that now it's going to be okay to basically allow anybody to be preachers, regardless of your sexual orientation or preference. This world we live in is crazy, man. So you have to be very, very careful where you go. The next thing I would say is, you may not, if you don't have a car, I get it. What I'd recommend you start doing is just trying to find a church, because maybe they have services that are online that you could watch for a while. Maybe you could then get in contact with somebody at that church that they have a rideshare program. You know, if I knew, I'm telling you right now, I drive about 35 to 40 minutes to get to Parkside Church. And I'm telling you right now, we'll see a chance. I'll tell you right now that if I knew there was somebody in my local town here that wanted to go to Parkside with me, I'd be happy to give them a ride. You know, most believers are serving. They're happy to serve, and giving you a ride is an easy thing to do. So I would look into that if it were me. Now let's go on to another question or comment that she made. So she's now commenting about the video and some other stuff that people said on here. So she writes, I was reading through the comments, and it's obviously a lot of SDAs are commenting on here. I'm not trying to be rude, but you need to read the Cain and Abel story again. The Bible literally does not say why God rejected Cain's offering. It's obvious to me it is something in his heart, or why he brought what he brought, that God was not happy with. And to prove Cain's heart was off, in the next sentence, he murders his brother Abel. Yeah. I think what I was talking about in that video was this old Adventist thing that I'd been taught myself, and I probably taught others. And that is, like, Cain and Abel showed the difference. Like, just because you're practicing worship doesn't mean it's acceptable. It has to be in the prescribed way. And the point being, show me where it was prescribed. Show me where it was prescribed. Show me where Cain brought the wrong thing. There are all kind of offerings that people can bring. Grain offerings. Okay, there's animal sacrifices. There's wine offerings. Okay, so don't give me a bunch of garbage about, like, well, there you go. It proves it. This is stupidity. We have to be very, very careful not to be arguing from silence. But that's precisely what you guys are doing. It's precisely what you're doing. So yeah, so on that video, I'm sure I had a number of Adventists that were chiming in, and yeah, it's always a good time. All right, let's look at one more comment that I noticed that somebody else left. Where'd it go? Here you go. This was sent to me from a Jay Samoas. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing any of that, but this comment was on that last video about being married to an Adventist. And so Jay writes this: completely agree on the advice not to marry an Adventist. I dated an Adventist lady, and in the beginning, I just saw it as another denomination with some weird beliefs. Yeah, because that's how they spin it. They use all the same terminology. Depending upon the church you're going to, they might sing the same kind of praise songs that you might see at another mainstream Orthodox, Christian church. They're striving to look as Christian, as truly Christian as possible. As our relationship developed and I learned more about Adventism, I became increasingly horrified by their theology. Yes. whether it's the Trinity or the Day of Atonement, and how Lucifer, how Satan himself is part of the Day of Atonement, that he is carrying the burden of sin, not Christ. Unbelievable. And I could go on. Eventually, it became obvious it would have been a nightmare of a marriage. That's right. It's sad, as I saw her as someone who loved Jesus, but between her judging my faith as inferior and my increasing outrage at their theology, we broke up. And I have a suspicion, Jay, that in retrospect, it was probably bittersweet. Like, what I mean is, it was definitely bitter at the time, but when you think long term, like, wow, it was definitely for the best. I mean, the thing we would hope is that their eyes would be opened and that they would see. But when it comes to marriage, you don't want to be hopeful. You don't want to be, you know what I mean? You don't want to be like, well, I'm hoping that maybe they'll change their opinion on this. I'm really hopeful. I remember a piece of advice somebody gave me when my wife and I were getting married, and it said something like this: women marry men thinking I'll change them, and men marry women thinking they'll never change, and neither is true. So she may have been looking at you thinking, well, I'm going to get him to convert, and that clearly wasn't going to happen. So anyhow, I really appreciate everybody's when you guys send in these questions. I hope that these answers make sense, that you find them, they give you some relief. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer those. And yeah, if there's any questions, there's only 4 of you here right now, but if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate you can write something in the chat right now, or if you want to comment on the videos later, I'm happy to address those. Again, as I leave you tonight, I would, commend to you to check out this past Sunday's sermon, May 12th at Parkside Church. Alistair Begg, his sermon on Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. It was a beautiful word from God. So cannot recommend that to you guys enough. So with that being said, thank you guys for hanging in here with me tonight. I appreciate it. And thank you for your continued support. I greatly appreciate that. You guys have a great rest of your week. God bless.